So, there's a school of thought that believes that everything has been done before, there are no new ideas, and I thoroughly agree with this. But the question becomes, if there are no new ideas, how do you create something original? Before we can answer that though, what is originality? Google definition: the ability to think independently and creatively. Is my entire channel just going to be me ripping on Google Dictionary? That definition is accurate and it supports my claim that nothing is original. The ability to think independently and creatively. Independently. And that's where I start to make my case. That's where I start to pick apart originality. Independently. Without influence, there is not a single person on the planet that hasn't been influenced by someone or something else in some way. And that makes the very concept of originality null and void. I feel like this is about to turn into some inspirational type shit, and it is, but the only thing I can say is truly original is you as a person. No one else has your experiences. Don't try to be different, quirky, or unique. Be yourself, because that person already is. Originality is subjective. For example, the idea of a chosen one story could be completely original and unheard of to someone, while someone else is rolling their eyes at the mere sight of it. I believe originality is not in the concept, but the execution. Mark Twain writes, "There is no such thing as a new idea. It is impossible. We simply take a lot of old ideas and put them into a sort of mental kaleidoscope. We give them a turn and make new and curious combinations. We keep on turning and making new combinations indefinitely, but they are the same old pieces of colored glass that have been around throughout the ages." Wise words. So the reason I went on this entire spiel is that you clicked on this video for a reason, and I wanted to dissuade you from pressuring yourself to come up with something new and original, because that's something I've done a lot myself. It sucks. And I know you've done this because you're a writer. We're a complete fucking mess. So hopefully knowing this helps you relieve some of that. Just let your unique personality bleed onto the page. However, as much as I like talking about concepts, philosophies, and theories, we need something concrete that is actively going to improve our writing. So how do you create those combinations that old Daddy Twain was talking about? A good method I like to use is to apply genre constraints. And what I mean by this is, so we take one thing that is tested and tried and popular in one genre, and we throw it into a different one entirely. So you take that fantasy thing that you see all the time and you constrain it to a sci-fi setting or whatever genre you like to write in and see what comes of it. A really good example I've seen of this is Brandon Sanderson's Mistborn. Yes, I know, stop rolling your eyes. He basically took Ocean's 11 and a fantasy setting and said, okay, now do the dirty, I'll be back in 30 minutes, okay? Okay. And their child is Mistborn. At least the first half anyway. It evolves into something else, but you can see how an idea like this can spur something really creative. Also, for future reference, if I'm going to spoil a book or a movie or something, I'll leave an alert on the screen or let you guys know, because we don't spoil here on this channel. So we have our fantasy heights and we start to apply fantasy conventions, a dark lord, a magic system, different races, and oh, this isn't looking so much like Ocean's 11 anymore. This is kind of looking like an original idea. Another way I used to come up with original stuff is to flip tropes and cliches on their head. A trope is just simply a common genre convention. It's not the same as a cliche. A cliche has an inherently negative connotation with it. It's basically a trope that has been done to death. The horse is dead and has turned into a fossil fuel, and you are still beating at it. Cliche tropes, you do it the same as everybody else. You're uncreative with it. It's bland. It's lazy. But like I said, with originality, it is very subjective. A person can like a cliche trope that general consensus disagrees with, even though their opinion is wrong. You don't have to do a complete 180 with the trope. You can change a single thing, add different elements, delve deeper into the already existing trope, or subtract something and make it completely different from what it already was. I see people try to shy away from tropes with their writing. Don't, please don't. Because you're going to hit tropes regardless of whether you want to or not. There are just so many and the list is so expansive that this is something that is virtually unavoidable. Go to tvtropes.org, you find a fuck ton of them there. Some you didn't even know were common enough to have names or even existed. And that list is non-exhaustive. So just write what you want to write and don't let people dissuade you. And if your story naturally subverts a trope, then sure. What I've seen is that a decently done regular trope generally reads better than one where the writer went out of their way to subvert it. A lot of the times it ultimately just flops. And I have seen outliers, but like I said, it doesn't have to be a complete 180. You can do things very minutely. But hey, once again, writing is very subjective. If you want to subvert a trope and you think you can pull it off, go right ahead. An example of a very simple subversion of a trope that I've seen is in John Wick. Minor spoilers ahead. This is your warning. Take it. The woman in the refrigerator. This trope is basically when an important woman in the protagonist's life dies and that death motivates him to do shit. Extra points if she's brutally murdered and is a cardboard cutout with zero personality traits other than being a woman. Now, a woman does die in John's life, but it does the opposite. It demotivates him. He's stuck. He doesn't know what to do with himself now. He's just floating through life. But that's not the subversion. John gets a dog as a gift from his dead wife because she knew she was going to die. It was a terminal illness. So one last thing to remember him by. He starts to take care of this dog and he slowly gets attached. His life brightens ever so slightly. But as you can already guess, this dog gets shot in the fucking head. And that awakens the boogeyman. Or at least what you send to kill the boogeyman. Regardless, he starts killing people with
fucking pills.
It's a very simple thing and would have been incredibly easy for the writers to go, okay, yeah, she gets shot in a drive-by or something, and that's what motivates John to go find Vigo's son. But I guarantee you, if only subconsciously, the audience would have been rolling their eyes at yet another woman stuffed in the refrigerator. But no, they give it this cute pupper, they make you care for it, and then they stuff him in the refrigerator. Big brain. Writers are evil, dude. Oh my god. And I guess you can make the argument that it is still the woman in the refrigerator but by proxy of a dog. But the point I'm trying to make is that this is a very simple subversion on an overdone trope that gives it a relatively more admissible effect. A fresh-ish feeling, if you will. By the way, if you're wondering where that trope got its name, there was a Green Lantern comic back in the day where he got home and literally found his girlfriend murdered and stuffed in the refrigerator. And the last thing I do to help me come up with original shit is just to consume content. Think about it for a second. If you can't be truly original and you only draw from your experiences and influences, then wouldn't it make sense that you have more of a chance for unique combinations the more experiences you have to draw from? Using video games as an example. You're playing an RPG and you can craft different weapons from shards of metal. But the shards are each unique and the order with which you place them matters. With 4 shards, you get 24 weapons. Now you add another shard and that number spikes up to 120 weapons. And it starts to feel like one of those games that you can never really 100% it. I didn't really think this through, did I? Throwing math at a bunch of writers. But the point I'm trying to make is that it is exponential. So I consume as much as I can, from real life experiences to fictional ones. Books, TV shows, movies, anime, manga, graphic novels, anything I can get my hands on that I can find a story. But I don't just consume, I look at it with a critical eye, pick apart what works and what doesn't, and figure out the reasons why. You take the good and you implement it into your work, but in your own style, from your own unique mind state, focusing on the parts that you connect to because of your unique life experiences. And from that, you start to see the beginnings of something that is well and truly yours. So how do you be original? Conclusive answer? There is none. I think one thing you'll find if you keep watching my channel is that I like to play devil's advocate. No, you can't be completely original, but yeah, you're still able to create something that is very unique.